think back to a time where everything just clicked. Like it just worked. Your mind was sharp, your body moved effortlessly, every decision felt instinctive, and everything was sort of automatic, right? Like it's a state where time slows down, distractions fade away, and you can do amazing things. You can do things you thought were impossible or not for you or whatever. And that state is what we call the peak performance state, right? It's this moment where preparation and focus, they collide in the best possible way, and they make the impossible possible in a way. So that's beautiful. And it's not a talent. Peak performance is not just a specific training. It's how well the body and the mind work together. That is basically what peak performance is. And it's a state where our preparation, our focus, our confidence, the motivation that we have, they all come together, and the resistance is minimized. It's as small as possible. And that is exactly what I want to break down for you today, to really understand what makes us have those moments of peak performance more than just by accident, but really train for it, prepare ourselves for it, and understand how we can access it in those moments when we need it. And I wanted to spend an entire episode on it. In preparation, I realized that I have a lot of things to say about this, so this is going to be split into 2 episodes, and I'm so excited about it. So let's get started. Welcome to the Healthy and Aligned podcast. My name is Lisa. I am a mindset and innovation coach for athletes and for athletic teams. And on the Healthy and Aligned podcast, I talk about all things mental training, mindset related in the world of sports, anything an athlete needs to know to perform at their best, right? To get to that peak performance that we're going to talk about today and next week. And I basically look at the different concepts, I break them down, I dissect them, I do my best to make them easily understandable, and then we puzzle them back together to find strategies on how to train them, on how to use those mental abilities that we have to our benefit, pretty much, because often they get in the way, and that is not something that we want. So I am super excited that you're here and that you want to learn about more about what peak performance is and how you can make use of it in the best way. So peak performance, it's pretty much the highest level of functioning for an athlete, actually for anyone. It's not athletes only, who have peak performance, but that's the lens through which I'm going to see it for the purpose of the podcast. And it is really the moment where our skills, our mindset, our physical abilities, they all come together and they align in this beautiful way. And it's not, I'm just doing my best. It's not, I'm just going to show up and go for it and, push really hard. No, it's much more than that. It is something that is deliberate. It is something that is not an accident. It's not a byproduct. It's something that you need to actively create. And it's sort of this harmonious integration of the mind and the body. It's creating a symphony of who you are as a whole being with all that you have, right? Because very often I feel that in the world of sports, the focus is heavily on the physical side of things, which makes so much sense. Sports is a physical activity, right? And without the physical training, the drills, the repetition, the efforts that are put in to create a body that brings or that answers the requirement needed for a specific sport, an athlete is not going to perform really well, right? So I completely and 100% understand the focus, and I'm totally behind it. However, we are more than just our bodies, and our mental state, our mental perspective on things, our mindset towards our performance has an equally important part in our way to show up, in the way that we perform when it matters, right? So there is this mental side of the mind-body approach, so the mind side, that can actually make or break it, because you can train as much as you want. If your mind is not playing along, you will not be able to access your physical abilities in high stress situation, in situations where it really matters, where your mind can play tricks on you, quote unquote, that will not allow you to really use your physicality as much as you trained for. So all the physical training could be for nothing if you do not also train the mind and train your mindset, for that matter. So to reach peak performance, we really want to, as I said, integrate our mind and our body as much as possible so that we can enter a so-called flow state. And a flow state is something, you've experienced it. We often experience it as children. It's when we completely lose ourselves in the activity that we're doing. It's like time doesn't exist. It doesn't matter. We're at the perfect level of ability meets challenge. Everything we do is very intuitive. So the decisions that we make are intuitive. They're almost automatic. And we can't perform beyond our regular capabilities, right? It's when everything comes together, we are so much better. We can bring so much more to the table than if we just, rely on the body only or the mind only. So that is what we want when we go for peak performance. And as per usual, I have broken down the concept of peak performance. I mentioned it in the introduction already. So I think I made that clear, but just, as another disclaimer, when I talk about peak performance in today's episode and next week's episode, I focus on the mind part of the mind and body, because the body, you got that. You have your coaches for that. You have your training schedules, your training plans, your workouts for that. You know what you need to do to prepare your physical body for the task at hand. So I see it as my job to now help you prepare your mind for the task at hand as well. So that is our focus, the mind, the mental approach. And when I break it down, it's also only the mental aspects of it, obviously. So peak performance, what is it? It is the combination of your preparation, because without preparation, there is no foundation. There is nothing that you can build on. Then you have your focus. Without focus, your energy is scattered all over the place, and you cannot ensure that you're moving in the right direction or in the direction that you want to. Then there is confidence. Without confidence, you'll hesitate. You'll miss the opportunities. You'll move slower. You'll not be as fast as you want to be, because you are still dealing with the self-doubt that came into your vision, sort of, or in your way. And there's motivation, because without motivation, we're not moving anywhere. We're not moving forward. The drive that we have or that we can muster up will fade away, fizzle away very, very quickly. So those are the 4 things that we want to have more of. And then there is resistance. So managing the resistance. It's sort of, if you imagine this as the formula, you would have preparation times focus times confidence times motivation divided by the resistance. Because it doesn't matter how much you have of all of these other things, if you do not manage your resistances properly, the best intentions will crumble. It will not allow you to move forward. Okay, so 5 elements that make up the peak performance, the mind part of the peak performance. And now I would love to dive into each of these elements to give you sort of an overview of each element, a better understanding of each element, so that you know exactly what it means and why it is important to achieve peak performance and how you can actually train for it and get better at it. And I have recorded an episode or even more episodes on pretty much each of these elements, and I'm going to link to all of these other episodes in the show notes or in the video description, so you can listen to them whenever you need to. Like if you want to learn more about a specific thing, that's where you need to go. Okay, let's talk about the different elements. Let's start with the preparation. The preparation is laying the groundwork for anything that you do. So if we were to talk about physicality, it is the trainings, it's the rehearsals, it's the drills. Now that we talk about the mind part, the mindset part, it is a deliberate and intentional and consistent practice of your mindset, right? It is being mentally ready, making sure that you have room in your training schedule, in your workout schedule, to also train your mind, because we need to train our mind as we train our bodies. So if there is no space in your workouts or in your preparations for your mind, you'll have to go back to the drawing board and add it to your schedule. It's important to make it deliberate and make it very intentional, to know what you're training towards, just as you would do with the physical skill. If you do a specific drill, or if you go for like a resistance workout, you work on specific muscles of your body in your resistance workouts. That's exactly how I want you to understand your mental preparation and your mental training. So there is a specific thing in your mindset that you are training. So whether that's the things that I mentioned before, so it could be focus, confidence, motivation, it could be maybe working on your fear of failure, maybe it could be working on your inner self-talk, like affirmative self-talk rather than negative self-talk. Like there's so many different things that you could specifically work on in your mental practice, in your mental training. And what it does when you do that, when you make it part of your routines, is that not only do you obviously get better at those things, but also it builds trust in your abilities. It allows you to focus less on the things that are distracting, that are getting in your way, and focus on those things that allow you to be better, that hype you up, that support you. And by doing that, you can rely on your abilities, right? It's like, as you can rely on your muscles when you do strength workouts, you can rely on your mindset as you do mindset workouts. You reduce any hesitations. You inevitably, looking at the 5th element that I mentioned, you will reduce and minimize your resistance because you're strengthening the other parts, right? You're removing the things that are holding you back and you're investing in the things that bring you forward. So resistance will inevitably get slower. Yes. So make sure that it is an intentional, not just simply repeating something, but be intentional about why you are practicing a specific thing. Make sure you know what you want the outcome to be, so what you're working towards, and have that intent and have that focus when you do it. One way to really easily practice your mindset is visualization, which is a tool that I know that a lot of athletes use, but there are also different ways on how you can use it. So I'm going to introduce one way here and another way later. So visualizing in the terms of preparation is that you simulate high stress situations for yourself. difficult moments for yourself, moments where you know that you need to be at your top game mentally. And visualizing is pretty much what you're visualizing things in your mind, right? Like what the name says. So you put yourself mentally into a situation. Let's give an example. Let's say it's game day. It's an away game, and you usually have trouble working with away crowds because they're rude, they're mean, they're aggressive, and you rather have people cheer for you and not cheer for the opponent and boo, towards you, or be mean and rude. And that is something that usually kind of like rattles you and takes off your focus, and you just really don't like it, right? It doesn't feel nice. And that is something that you can visualize. So you really put yourself in that environment of the away game, the environment that you will be in, or that you have been in the past as well, and really make it a visceral experience, make it a full body sensory experience. What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you smell? What do you taste? Like, what do you see? Obviously, like, really put yourself into that moment and hear the crowds, hear what they have to say, hear what they, how rude they are or whatever. And then you practice how you want to react, how you want to feel in that moment. Is there a way that you can use that as fuel for yourself? Is there a way that you can tune it out, maybe? Like, however you want to react, that's exactly what you practice in these visualization sessions, right? And that is how you can prepare yourself mentally for, in this case, an away game day with loud and mean away fans, like or home fans, pretty much, of the competitor, of the opponent that you're facing. That is an example of practicing your mind, of training your mind and preparing yourself. So it's all about having self-awareness, knowing what triggers maybe specific emotions, where you react differently than you want to, where you fall into self-doubt, or when does your mind start to talk negatively to yourself? When is your inner critic super loud? Like those things. Be self-aware, know what's going on in your head, and understand what your mind is doing at any given time, pretty much. And then using tools to quote unquote tackle it is probably a better way, tackle it in a way that you can turn it around to your advantage and prepare you mentally for those situations in the future. Okay, that is preparation. Next element, focus. Focus basically simply means that you are immune to distractions. There is nothing that can get you out of your concentration, nothing that can get your attention other than the thing that you want it to be on, right? So it is streamlining your efforts. It's being really clear, maximizing your focus, your concentration, your efficiency, your impact, your energy on the thing that you want to do. If you hear noises in the background, I apologize for that. I live on top of a kindergarten and they have outside playtime right now. So just enjoy the kids having fun in the background if you hear it. I hope it's not distracting to you. So that's why we talk about focus, right? And that's also what I need to do. I need to tune out those distractions, be immune to those distractions, and just continue recording. Very good example there. So distractions, they can be internal or external. External ones, you might have just heard. I'm not sure how much the mic is picking up, but I can hear it very well. And these internal and external distractions are usually the biggest threats to the peak performance. It's when, let's say it's Roland Garros, you have the final of the French Open, right? And Sasha Zverev is on the field and he's about to make a serve, and he gets really upset with the fans because someone just shouted something at him and distracted him. really got in the way of his focus to, prepare for the surf. And then he complains to the ref, and it's a whole thing, and then everyone has to be quiet, and so on and so on and so on. That is an example of where a distraction interrupted his game, his peak performance. And he is one of the best tennis players currently, at least on this planet, and he gets distracted as well, right? And I think it's a very good example to show how important and eminent those distractions are, that even those like high-end athletes struggle with it sometimes. And that's also why it is so important to work on those distractions. And we can see it when we watch sports all the time, how external distractions get in the way of someone performing at their highest level. Those are visible, right? Because they're external. But honestly, I truly believe that the internal distractions are probably much more prevalent than the external ones. It's just that we don't know. We can't see it. Unless they tell it like in an interview or something, we won't know what happens inside of an athlete. And internal distractions are the self-doubt, the not believing in your abilities, it's the fear of failure, it's the fear of looking stupid because we did something wrong, something that we should be able to do, and stuff like that. Those are internal distractions that get in the way of us performing at our best. And as I said, I'm pretty sure that those are much more common and much more dominant than we know, because they're not visible, right? So these distractions, we have to learn to be immune towards them, and staying present, staying in the moment, not worrying about what's going to happen next, but really focusing on the thing that we do right now, like mindfulness of the current moment. That is the cornerstone to peak focus. And we can practice that. Definitely we can practice that. There are so-called focus drills, which are exercises that are specifically geared towards specific aspects of your focus. Is it a focus that is super narrow, pinpointing on one specific thing? Is it let me call it peripheral focus, because you're a soccer player and you need to see what's happening on the entire field. And when you do a penalty shot, it doesn't matter what's happening on the field. You need to have that pinpoint focus. Like, there are different types, right? And each type has a different, a lot of different focus drills that you can do. So specific activities and exercises. Then mindfulness practices, so important. I hope you don't think they're woo-woo, because they're definitely not. Being mindful, being connected in your body, maybe through meditation, maybe through breathing, maybe just to sitting still and paying attention to your body. It's so powerful, because it's something that you always have on hand. No matter where you are, no matter what you do, you always have you with you. Right? So you can always connect to that inner calmness, that inner groundedness that you have, and regain your focus through that. And the more we practice that, the more we do those mindfulness exercises or activities, the easier it is to tap into that. And especially in a high stress situation, if you've practiced it well, you can connect to it easily. If you haven't practiced it well, it's obviously going to be much more difficult to do that. What else? Microtasking is also quite a simple tool to help you focus, especially if it's about a long-term focus. So this is about breaking down activities into smaller steps, because you will feel that you're moving forward much quicker because you have like those baby steps that you're doing. And it's much harder for distractions to distract your baby step. There's much less, how do I say that? Like surface sort of, or time for distractions to come in. And it's much easier to focus on a small thing than on a big thing. So even internal distractions, they don't have as much, like as big of a target, to attack than if you have like this focus on a long, big activity, right? So breaking it down into smaller tasks is super helpful. So let's say you have specific throws that you want to prepare as a basketball player from specific angles, from like different distances to the hoop, and you want to practice all of those in one session instead of looking at the entire thing and be like, okay, I have to do all of those, let me just do it. You just break it down into the specific throws or into those distances or whatever it is that you want to focus on, and that's all you do. Just this one thing with this one distance. And then it's much easier to focus on that rather than thinking about, and then what's going to come next and what do I have to do after that? And, like it gives more room for distractions to come and to interrupt your focus than if you have really just one micro task that you need to do. Okay. That is, I think, what I wanted to share about focus. Let's talk about confidence. Such a beautiful topic. So confidence also, if we break it down, it's the ability, it's the belief in our abilities. That's what it is. Our abilities that we can succeed. So it is pretty much the translation of our thoughts into action. That's all that confidence is. I think of something that I want to do, and then I do it. And I did it, and that is the moment when I go from thinking about it to doing it. That's the confidence part. That's when we need confidence as well. And it's nothing that is innate. Like none of the things that I'm talking about here are born, gifts. It's something that we learn. It's something that we build. It's something that is continuously reinforced through our work and through our actions, because as I said, it's thought moving into action and succeeding at that action, which builds confidence. So taking action is the way to be more confident. So it's very simple. It's having a bias towards action. When in doubt, do it. It really is. That is the key to confidence. And I know it's And I know it's easier said than done, so I want to give you some more tools to build confidence than just do it, even though that's the most powerful of them all. But it will help if you, again, break down things into smaller actions and realize the small wins that you do. So every time you do something, let's get back to that training session where you do the shots from different distances. Every time you've practiced something, you can give yourself a little tap on the shoulder and be like, yeah, I just did that. I just practiced that. Check off the list. I've done that bit and I did it because I can do it. I have the abilities to do it. I have the abilities to train. For example, I have the ability to train from this distance. Then what you can also do, other than celebrating small wins, is really do some mental work on your self-doubt, on the things that are holding you back from taking action. Really understand what it is that is holding you back. What's blocking you? Is it fear of failure? Is it comparison to other people? Is it the fear of looking stupid, maybe, to other people? Or you don't think you're good enough to do it. You think other people are much more skilled than you are or better prepared than you, whatever. Like really understand what is holding you back from doing it. Take the time to dissect it, to see where it comes from. Is it something that you took on from another person because they always said it and now you believe it too? Or is it something that is anchored in a past experience that you have? Like whatever it is, like really spend some time with the thoughts that are coming up and then find evidence that this is not true. Debunk it. Find evidence in your own past where you have done something great or something similar and it worked out. find evidence in other people that have done it and succeeded. So maybe it is possible, Try and really take the wind out of the sails of these self-deprecating thoughts, of this self-doubt. Another tool that you can use to counteract self-doubt is tapping. I love tapping. I really believe it's like the magic solution for most of the problems that we have in our mind. And tapping is a mind-body technique where we tap on specific points on our upper body and we focus on statements that are related to whatever we want to focus on, whatever we want to change. So if you feel that you haven't trained enough or you're not good enough, someone else is better, that's exactly what we're going to tap on. And by tapping on it, we get to reframe the stories that we repeat in our heads and turn them into something that is serving us rather than holding us back. I upload tapping videos every Sunday on my YouTube channel, so check it out there. See if maybe you can find the things that are holding you back already on my channel. If not, let me know and I'd be more than happy to create and record a video or a tapping session for your specific self-doubt topic that is coming up. Okay, so confidence, great, important tool to have to make sure that we really believe in our abilities and not hesitate and not get derailed and not get, lured into missing opportunities because we're not sure, like we don't need those insecurities anymore and we're confident athletes. Next element is motivation. Motivation is, if we break it down, also a very simple thing. So we have a gap into where we are and where we desire to be, right? So going back to my basketball example, right now I'm not really good at, throwing from the sideline, throwing from a specific angle. And I really want to be good at this, and that is a gap. That is a gap from where I am right now to my desire on where I want to be. And then we take this gap and we multiply it with our desire to close that gap. Like, how much do you want to go from where you are to where you want to be? How much emotional energy do you have for that desire? Is there an intensity behind it? Like you really, really want to be able to throw those balls and make those points. It's really important to you. You really want to do it. You're really riled up about it. And that means that you are motivated to work on it. You're motivated to get better at it. And that motivation is what will allow you to move forward, to keep going. And without that motivation, you're not going to go and do those trainings. You're not going to go and become better at that thing, because why? It would be nice to be able to do it, but if you don't have that emotional intensity, you're not going to work for it. So that emotional connection to reaching that goal that you envision for yourself, that version of yourself that you see in the future, is what allows you to move forward. It is sometimes referred to as connecting to your why, right? The why would be able to, get those points from that specific position on the field. I just feel that sometimes the why question is these days it's overused. So I try to kind of steer away from it, even though it's a very powerful way of looking at it. But yeah, I see it more as the desire to close the gap. And if we want to have more motivation, it is exactly doing that. It is connecting to that desire, to that gap that we identified for ourselves, and really be in the moment of that person that has already reached that desire. And this is now where the other use case for visualization comes in, because this time we're not going to focus on the process and how we react. We visualize the moment or the person, the identity of ourselves, who is able to make those points from the sideline, who is able to throw those balls just perfectly. and we really connect to that image. You visualize, again, make it a full body experience. How does it feel like when you make those points and you hear the crowds cheer for you because you made the throw, you did it, and you get really excited and you get really like happy about it. Maybe you think about what would happen if you don't master that skill, and go a bit into the sad side of the story, into the, oh my God, you're never going to be a good forward. You're never going to get the ball when you're standing there. So you have less exposure or less play time, and less play time also means that you're less valuable to the team. And if you're less valuable to the team, maybe there are other people who are more valuable, so they're going to be playing much more than you, which again reduces your play time, and eventually you're going to be benched. Like, you can go that path if you want to. Sometimes it's healthy to look at what we have to lose if we don't go for something, and really like connect with the emotions that are coming up. So visualizing the end result is what we're doing here, to connect with the emotional intensity of our desires. Okay, last element number 5, which is the one we want to learn how to manage. So right now we talked about preparation, focus, confidence, and motivation. Those are the things that we want more of, that we really want to connect to and, be like bathed in it. And now when we talk about resistance, that's the thing that we want to learn how to manage, because it will be there. Resistance is part of every person's life. It is part of our experience, because our brains are wired to keep us safe. Our brains want us to survive, which is great, which is beautiful, right? Like, thank you, brain, for keeping me alive. However, this need for safety makes our brain shy away from things we don't know. So rather no uncertain situations, because it might be dangerous, right? I rather move within my comfort zone because I know what's going to happen, or what's likely to happen. And also, I don't like discomfort. I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel not good in my skin. That's the brain trying to protect us and to keep us safe. And as you can tell already, that is often at odds with the vision that we have for ourselves, the growth that we want to have, and the great things that we want to achieve in our lives, and the dreams, that we see in our future. So we have to deal with that push and pull sort of our brain, that on the one hand wants to keep us safe and small and, in our corner, and the part that is longing for expansion, for growth, for being bigger, for doing greater things, right? So there is a tension between those two. And depending, on which side is stronger, there's going to be more either motivation or more resistance. And the resistance part is, as I said, we all have it. It's very natural. It's very normal to have it. It's basically inevitable because of how our brain is wired, but it doesn't mean that we cannot deal with it. It doesn't mean that we cannot manage it. Because if we look at what I just said, our brain wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us out of discomfort. It is now time for us to make our brain understand that we are safe, even though it's just uncomfortable, for example. Or even though it's uncertain and we don't exactly know how it goes, we are still safe. It's not a danger to our survival, right? So being very clear about what we're doing next and the potential effects that it can have on us is helping us to have less resistance. And resistance, it can come in so many ways. It's the anxiousness that I mentioned, like the fear of what would happen in uncertain situations and whether we can handle it or not. It could be fatigue, mental fatigue or physical fatigue. It could be manifesting itself in procrastination. Like, there's so many other things we need to do first before we do XYZ, the self-doubt, the insecurities that I mentioned earlier when I talked about confidence. It's a form of resistance. The distractions that come in, whether it's internal and external, and our reaction to those distractions, again, a form of resistance, right? So all these things are linked together. And resistance can sometimes also be Actually, I haven't broken it down yet, right? So resistance is, again, that gap of where we are right now and the desire where we want to be, and the fear that is connected to closing that gap. So if I practice these 3-pointers or these throws from the sideline as a basketball player, it's going to be so exhausting. There's going to be so many long sessions that I have to do. I don't know if I want to do that. It's physically exhausting. It's also boring to do the same throw over and over again. Also, there are maybe birthday parties that I'm going to miss because I have to train. Or there is the possibility that I injure myself, which I don't want. My muscles are going to be sore. Like, so many things that can come up when you think about that specific thing. And those are fears of what could happen, fears of discomfort, pretty much. And that is pretty much what resistance is, right? It's the fear of closing the gap, of what that would mean to us. And the bigger the resistance, often it's a very good magnifying glass for where we can grow a lot, where we have the potential to be even bigger, because there's a lot of resistance to it, which means that it's an area where we haven't put much attention to yet. So a lot of uncertainties, a lot of question marks, and it's unclear if we're good at it or not, so I'm very resistant. If there is something that's very similar to something that we have done before, usually the resistance is smaller because the odds are not against us, like our brain can say, it's similar to a 3-pointer if I throw it from here, so I know I mastered that one, so I might be able to master this one as well. So the resistance is not as big. If it's throwing the ball from, I don't know, the other side of the field, the resistance might be huge because that's something I've never done before and I've never mastered, and I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea, but those are the examples I chose right now, so we're gonna go with it. So big resistance is usually a very good thing, because that's an area where you can really invest your time in and really grow in. So to remove the resistance as much as possible, I mentioned a lot of things already when I talked about the other elements and how to improve those. So as soon as you improve your focus, you lower the resistance of distractions. If you improve your confidence, you lower the resistance of self-doubt, of insecurities. If you increase your preparation, you lower the resistance towards training your mind and being scared of what come up, or if it's uncomfortable, or like the uncertainty that is connected with that. What did I miss? If you increase your motivation, if you work on that, the desire to close the gap is bigger. The fear of closing the gap will get smaller inevitably. So you will start moving forward with more speed. So understanding your resistance, identifying the triggers that bring up the resistance, truly understanding the thoughts. And again, like I said earlier, where does it come from? Where is it born from? Like, is it my own experience, this resistance? Is it fear because I just don't know what's going to happen? That is something easy to solve. You do research and you learn what is going to happen, resistance decreases. Is it the fear in my own abilities? Well, I start small. I start with baby steps and I start building the confidence in my abilities. Again, having those micro-tasking strategies are super helpful here. Going for small wins, going for small steps that are less daunting and less crazy. Again, tapping, great tool to remove any type of resistance, because it allows us to reframe our fears or our limiting beliefs into something that is more supportive and helps us to move forward, right? Okay, those are the 5 elements of the mind part of the mind-body alignment that we need for peak performance. And that's already a lot, and I want to leave it at this for now. And in the next episode, I'm going to continue with the topic of peak performance, and we talk about why the mind-body connection is super important for peak performance. So stay tuned for that episode, and I see you then next Tuesday for part 2 of peak performance. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you then.